Thank you so much for even being interested enough to press the play button to hear what I have to say. As many of you know, I gave up my profession in program evaluation, the same profession that I was in for 25 years, because I felt very, very compelled to follow a new path. And in the last few years, I have had the blessing of running the Community Connections program, which is co-funded by the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice and the City of Tallahassee. And in that program, what we're doing is some really amazing work with youth, in particular teenagers that have had some involvement with the law. And we do restorative justice conferencing on the front end, and then over the 3-month period that the kids are with us, we do nonviolent communication, actually teaching them and deep process work with them using the nonviolent communication. And in that, we see some really amazing changes just in a matter of 3 months. I could see physical differences in the way kids come into us and in the way that they leave us. And during those 3 months, we also learn a whole lot about these kids. And I can say that there's probably not one that comes to us that hasn't had some kind of experience with trauma. The stories that we hear are pretty heart-wrenching, of parents being beat up. Many, if not all of these kids have some parents that are in jail or have had some involvement in jail. So many of them just going hungry, honestly. And I also see how many of these kids, even though they have records, once you know the stories behind them, it's like pretty amazing that they're even in the legal system at all, just adding more trauma to them. So one of the areas that I've been really, really interested in learning even more is how trauma impacts the brain and what can we actually do to help regrow the brain, so to speak, after a trauma event. Because what I have been learning, at least in little bits, is that the nonviolent communication process that we're using really has some significant impact on the way the neuroconnectivity of the brain is wired and can be rewired because of some of the things that we're doing. So what I'm asking for here is basically some support, because we are funded by public. We are on a shoestring budget. There's no way that I can afford through the program itself to get myself more trained up in the areas that I'm dying to get trained up in. In particular, I know of these two women out in Oregon. They're nonviolent communication certified trainers, but they're also doing a lot of work in brain research, neuroscience, and how trauma is basically affects the brain and what we can do using NVC process to help heal the brain. I'm really honed in on this area. I'm hungry to learn more. I'm hungry to bring it back to my program to help and continue to help the kids that we're serving and ultimately our community. I've got big plans to grow the program and bring more people under my wings so that they too can do these kinds of processes with kids. And really, to be honest with you, to help heal the world and bring more peace to our communities, which is so desperately needed. So if you're inclined at all to help, I would be forever in your debt, and so would, I'm sure, so many of the kids that we're touching through Community Connections. Thank you for listening, and if you can contribute, I would be forever grateful.